Bridges are older than written language. But for most of that history, crossing a river meant accepting the river's terms. The real shift came in the 20th century, when engineering stopped adapting to geography and started ignoring it entirely. What followed were structures that shouldn't exist, and in several cases, nearly didn't. What you'll see here changes how you read a map.
The Golden Gate Strait was considered unbridgeable until 1930. Tidal currents reaching 7.5 knots, fog cutting visibility to near zero, and bedrock 60 meters below. The solution was a suspension design anchored in open ocean, something no engineer had attempted at that scale before. Construction ran from 1933 to 1937. 11 workers died, far fewer than expected, largely because Chief Engineer Joseph Strauss mandated safety nets below the deck. Those nets saved 19 men. They called themselves the Halfway to Hell Club. The bridge cost $35 million. The nets cost a fraction of that. Nobody argued against them twice. The Vasco da Gama Bridge stretches 17.2 kilometers across the Tagus estuary, long enough that you cannot see the opposite end when you enter it. That number exists because engineers couldn't find stable bedrock closer to Lisbon. The river bottom is soft sediment over 80 meters deep in places. The implication is structural. The bridge was designed to withstand a seismic event equivalent to the 1755 earthquake that destroyed the city. What most drivers don't realize is that it curves slightly, deliberately, to follow the Earth's curvature. Built in 1998, construction took just 18 months. The deadline was Expo 98. The Sunshine Skyway Bridge in Tampa Bay stands 193 feet above water, not for aesthetics, but because the U.S. Coast Guard required clearance for the largest tankers entering the port. That single requirement dictated everything: the cable stay design, the span length, the angle of approach. What most people don't realize is that this is actually the replacement bridge. In May 1980, a freighter struck the original during a storm, collapsing a section and sending 35 people into the bay. Only one survived. The old support columns are still visible from the new bridge, sitting just below the surface at low tide. Before 1966, crossing the Tagus at Lisbon meant a ferry, 45 minutes each way, weather-dependent, no alternative. The bridge that replaced it was built by the same American company that built the Golden Gate, which is why visitors constantly mistake one for the other. Same red paint, same suspension profile, same steel cable system. What changed after opening day was less obvious. The southern bank, previously semi-rural, urbanized within a decade. The bridge didn't just connect two shores, it relocated an entire population. Today, 150,000 vehicles cross it daily. The ferry still runs. Fewer than 800 people use it. The northern Bosphorus, where the Yavuz Sultan Selim Bridge crosses, is not where anyone wanted to build. The strait here is 408 meters wide, currents run unpredictably, and the hills drop steeply with almost no flat approach. Every previous Bosphorus crossing was built further south, where conditions were easier. The adaptation was radical. Engineers designed the widest suspension bridge on Earth, 59 meters across, carrying 8 road lanes and 2 rail tracks simultaneously. It opened in 2016. The deck is so broad that workers reported disorientation walking across it during construction. Doesn't feel like a bridge from the inside. There are 2 Bosphorus bridges, and most people crossing them have no idea they're moving between 2 continents in under 3 minutes. The first, completed in 1973, was built without a single pier touching the water. The entire 1-74-meter span hangs between 2 towers anchored on opposing cliffs. From the deck, Istanbul spreads in every direction. Minarets on one side, modern towers on the other. The contrast that stays with you is what's underneath. Fishing boats, tankers, and ferries sharing the same strait that has been the world's most contested waterway for 2,600 years. The bridge made it all routine. Dongting Lake in China floods seasonally and unpredictably. Building a fixed crossing meant engineering for a lake that expands to 3 times its dry season size, swallowing roads that look solid in winter. The solution: 3,672 meters of pre-stressed concrete on foundations drilled into the lakebed at depths that took 2 full construction seasons to reach. What visitors notice on the crossing is the silence. No traffic noise carries across that much open water. What they don't see are the 28 workers who died during foundation work between 1996 and 1999. Their names are on a plaque at the Eastern Toll Station. Why does New York need 2 suspension bridges crossing the same water, less than 4 miles apart? The Throgs Neck Bridge opened in 1961, 11 years after the Bronx Whitestone just upstream. Engineers had found that one bridge couldn't handle peak summer loads to Long Island without gridlocking 3 boroughs. The fix was a second crossing with deliberately different approach roads, designed to split the load geographically. What drivers notice? Both bridges are visible to each other on clear days. What they don't know is that the Throgsneck's original design was rejected twice for being too similar to its neighbor. The wind hits you before you see them. At the Fredvang Bridges in Norway's Lofoten Islands, the North Atlantic comes in sideways, salt, cold, indifferent to tourists who drove hours to get here. The two bridges were built in 1988 to replace a ferry that made southern Lofoten villages unreachable in winter storms. Before that, fishermen on Moskenesoya spent entire seasons cut off from the nearest hospital. What nobody mentions is that the bridges are deliberately low, just high enough for local fishing boats, because building them taller would have cost 4 times more and served nobody who actually lived there. A local story in Ella, Sri Lanka, claims the Nine Arches Bridge was built without a gram of steel, because the ship carrying the metal was redirected to World War I before it arrived. A builder named P.K. Apuhami proposed using only stone, brick, and cement instead. Engineers approved it under pressure. The bridge opened in 1921 and has carried trains across a 91-meter span ever since, 24 meters above the jungle floor. What visitors don't expect: the arches frame the tea plantations so precisely it looks staged. It wasn't designed that way. The jungle slowly grew into the gaps. The twisted bridge in Dubai, formerly the Infinity Bridge, rotates 90 degrees along its own axis between banks. That twist isn't decorative. The two approach roads sit at different elevations, and a straight span would have required expensive ramps on both sides. The rotation absorbs the height difference structurally. What visitors notice standing underneath is that the deck seems to disappear. The torsion makes the profile nearly invisible from certain angles. What they don't expect is the sound. Steel expansion joints produce a low metallic groan in the evening, when temperatures drop and the structure contracts by several centimeters overnight. Before 1902, the Albula Valley in Switzerland was seasonally cut off. Passes closed in winter, the nearest rail connection a full day's detour away. The specific problem was the Landwasser Gorge. The cliff face offers absolutely no room for approach ramps on either side. Engineers curved the viaduct directly into the rock, so the train exits the bridge and enters a tunnel with no transition between them. The structure stands 65 meters tall, built entirely from local limestone. What most passengers miss: that curve means you can see the locomotive from your own window mid-crossing, folded against the gorge wall. The Magdeburg water bridge in Germany carries a navigable canal over a river, boats crossing directly above other boats. The structure is 9 to 18 meters long and holds roughly 68,000 tons of water at any given moment. That figure means the bridge was engineered not for a fixed load, but a constantly shifting one, as displacement changes with every vessel entering. The implication surprised engineers during testing. An empty barge makes the bridge lighter, not heavier, because it displaces less water than its own weight suggests. Most visitors walk across without ever realizing the canal beneath their feet is actively moving. The Pont-y-Silt aqueduct crosses the Dee Valley in Wales, where the gorge drops 38 meters. Too deep for an embankment, too wide for a simple arch. The limitation was geological, no stable foundation at reasonable depth. Thomas Telford's adaptation in 1805 was to carry the canal inside a cast iron trough, bolted directly onto hollow masonry pillars. The trough is just 3.4 meters wide. Narrow boats cross with centimeters to spare on each side. There is no railing on the towpath edge whatsoever. Canal workers in 1805 walked that open side carrying ropes. The ones who work it today still do. The Falkirk wheel in Scotland lifts canal boats 24 meters using less electricity than boiling 8 household kettles. That seems impossible until you understand the physics. Water displaced by a boat exactly equals the boat's own mass, so both gondolas always weigh the same. The wheel stays permanently balanced regardless of what enters. What visitors don't expect is the scale. Photos make it look compact, but standing beneath the rotating arms, it's 35 meters tall, moving with a slowness that feels almost reluctant. Built in 2002 to reconnect 2 canals severed in 1933. Nobody had used that route in 69 years.